This video is going to introduce you to the idea of setting out a shadow with the help of a method which establishes the light angle and the light direction. So I've got an eraser here, and if I turn a light on against it, you can see that the shadow changes its form depending on the direction, and it will change depending on the angle of the light. Okay, so we have to decide on where our light is coming from, the angle of it, and the direction before we can actually set out the shadow. So I'm going to do these two forms that are a different height, and you can see they'll have the same light direction and angle, and how the shadow changes from that. So I'm going to use different colors so it's easier for you to see. I am going to have the light coming from the right hand side, and the angle is going to be from these front three corners, just because I want the shadow at the front of the view. If it's far more directly from the right, it would be these left 3 points. Okay, if it was coming from the front, it would be the back 3 points, and so on. So these front 3 corners are going to have the same parallel line come down, and then I'm going to take from these bottom 3 corners, which are directly below the top corners on the ground, the light direction, okay, where the light is coming from. And these lines need to be parallel as well. Where these intersect should be the kind of profile of the shadow, and they should be parallel to the top of the shape. So with a cylinder, it would be rounded, and with something that's angled, it would be an angle not parallel, okay? So there's some variation within that rule. And then that sets out the shadow itself. Okay, we're going to do the same light source, so same light angle coming off or being projected off the top of the shape onto the ground, and then that same light direction angle. So remember, you can use a tool like another pencil to kind of help you understand or clarify what the light direction is. So you stick to your rule, and then you can join up those intersections to establish your shadow. Of course, the shadow is going to come from where the object touches the ground and in line with the light direction. So you can see how the shadow is longer for the taller object, and it is, but both of them are kind of set out in the same angle. I'm going to show you a object that has an angle within the surface, or that top surface, and I might adjust this shape here so that it's got a angle on its side. So it's wider at the top than it is on the bottom. So we might do a slightly different light direction. We are going to use these 3 corners rather than these 3 corners. No, we are going to I'm changing my mind just so that we can see this shadow a little bit more clearly. I think we'll stick with the same general rule that we've got up here for now. So similar light direction from those bottom corners, and then it may be easier to start with the light direction rather than the light angle first, and then you can kind of set out how far or how extreme, how long you want your shadow to be. Yeah, I definitely recommend doing that actually. And what's going to happen here is we actually need the light direction to also come from the projected point. So we push the top corner onto the ground and set out where that may be, because we need this top point within the shadow, and then it's going to connect up to these bottom points of the shadow. Okay, just follow me, follow along, and you'll understand through the demonstration. So this is the light direction here. Okay, that is the light angle. This point here is going to connect up to the bottom corner of the shape, so, or the form. This is the light direction, this is the light angle, they intersect here, the shadow is going to be here, and then it's going to go back. Rather than going back along the light direction angle, it's going to connect up to the bottom of the form, okay, because there is no bottom of the form there, it's set back, okay, so that sets the angle and shows off how it is at an angle rather than parallel to the light direction. So that becomes the shadow. Let's do that with an angled top surface. So we've got our angle set out for the light shining down. Remember, they need to be parallel where they intersect. You join them up. Okay, so what should be happening is this subtly gets a bit shorter and this one is a bit longer. We might want to just adjust that a little bit so that it's a little bit more dramatic, and this is more parallel to that edge there. Okay, so I've just adjusted, because it's a freehand sketch, there's always room to fix things up and make them look a little bit more right if the drawing itself is not very accurate. Cool, okay, so summary of shadows is that you want to have a general light source established before, so that you can make a decision on where your shadow is going to be cast. I would suggest behind on the left or behind on the right, so you can see the contrast of the tones on the surface when you render those as well, as opposed to being hidden on surfaces that you can't see in the viewpoint. Setting out your light direction is probably helpful first, from the ground, setting that out all parallel, and then projecting the light angle from the corners that are blocking, or the edges that are blocking the ground or that surface that your object's sitting on from and casting a shadow. So those two intersect, and the intersection points draft out the shape of the shadow.